All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I feel like lately on the show, I've been having a good mix of artists that I'm very familiar with and people who've been on the show many times before, and then artists who are totally new to me. And this is, the guest on this episode is someone in that category for sure. I think the best way to start this off is if you want to just introduce yourself and give a bit of background about what you do as an artist, and we can sort of go from there.
Sure. My name is Karina Joy. Yeah, I'm a folk artist from Winnipeg, non-binary. I am an avid performer at some local open mics like Osborne Tap House, Hanson Daughter, Modern Coffee. Yeah, I'm doing a lot more performances and stuff with my Karina Joy band as of late, and have works to start recording with my friend producer Marshall Keep,
Oh, cool.
and potentially do some more studio work with maybe House of Wonders. Yeah,
Right on. Yeah, that's, I mean, that's, if you're going to get studio work done in Winnipeg, that's definitely a good choice. I mean, they've been doing a lot of cool recordings for a lot of cool bands.
yeah, he's actually my mentor right now through Creative Manitoba. So
Oh, nice.
like,
Okay, well, that helps too, right?
yeah.
Uh, when I was looking through your website just for some background, the one thing that stood out in your bio was the reference that you've been writing songs since you were 4 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people I talk to on this show have been writing songs for a long time. Usually, four is not necessarily listed as the starting point. So, I mean, what does that mean to you as far as writing songs? Because obviously, as a 4 year old, the songwriting process is very different than it would be as an adult. So what does that mean? Sort of that length of time of songwriting. What do you think of it as when you were four, as writing songs?
Well, so when I was 4 years old, back then it was me watching some of my favorite movies and then my mom recording me basically doing just a long rant of a song describing every detail I remember from that song.
Cool.
And very soon after that, like I was the first one in my kindergarten class reading and writing. There's a lot of pictures of me as a kid, only with my little notebook, because I was writing down like I wrote down like poems, lyrics for
Yeah.
things. And once I was reading, I would like be sitting in the back of my parents' vehicle we're driving. I would read the billboards and just whatever words and stuff were on signs, and I would often sing them to like the tunes of nursery rhymes.
Okay.
And that's how I like kept myself occupied. Um, and then another thing I did a lot as a kid, and like still at that very young age, was anytime I was having like some big feelings, especially like if I was upset about something or really happy. Those are basically the broad spectrums in which I was writing.
Sure.
Um, I would like sing out my feelings, like, like even if it's just like I'm, mad about blah, 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 or, I'm so happy, I'm riding my bike in this, and I would just like sing those. And, sometimes pretend I was like having my own like music video. Not that I really had a concept of music videos back then, but once I was starting to consume like film and all that,
Yeah.
I would sing my songs and kind of like pretend like I was in my own song world as I would sing them to myself.
That's cool.
And then as I got older, songwriting definitely changed. When I was in middle school, being a teen, really hard, a lot of emotions.
Yep.
I started keeping a proper like composition songbook. I wrote a lot of sad stuff in
Teen
there.
angst. Yeah. Yeah.
Teenagers, yeah, they were hard. And that's when I started to really keep a proper record. Like I still have that composition book. And then I don't know, it was kind of just something I casually did. It didn't like jump out as like a special interest even for me. It was
Okay.
just like, oh yeah, like I do music. I write songs. Um, my family wasn't like super musical, but my dad was like he liked to collect his guitars that he didn't play. My older sister, they played a bit of guitar. Me, and once I was old enough to kind of have a start developing my voice, then me and my older sister would sing together and do
Okay.
covers. And yeah, I think it was only until I was like in high school that I actually started to be like, oh, I might be a songwriter. It started more like I was like, oh, I'm a poet. And then
Sure.
I was like, okay, you know what? Now that I have this like little ukulele to put music to, like I might be. And that's when I was more conscious of like, the fact that this was something that I was or had been continuously doing throughout my life. And towards the end of high school, I realized like, oh, maybe I actually want to do music like throughout my life. And now as a songwriter, that experience has definitely translated very well to me, just being able to, I think, effectively turn my emotions and experiences and things I hold inside into, tangible
Yeah.
songs and lyrics and stuff. So yeah.
How do those old? I mean, you said you keep the notebooks going back to junior high kind of age. How do those come across to you now? Like, have you gone back and read those lyrics recently, and then how do they compare? I guess to obviously, you've grown as a songwriter, I'm sure, but how do you feel about that stuff now if you look back on it?
Well, the stuff when I was four, those notebooks don't exist
Of
anymore
course, those ones,
because
yeah, yeah,
no sense of organization. But my old composition book, I look at it with both like, yeesh, and but also grace, because it was like, music was never something I did to show people initially. It was cathartic. It was how I regulated myself and just like dealt with, the the horrors of life and so looking back, I was kind of like, man, like it's very telling to the stuff I was going through in those times of my life. In my songbooks, I felt like it was really safe to just be very vulnerable and blunt. And looking back, I was kind of just like, I hope that I can keep being that vulnerable songwriter, but now show people, because I think the value in it now is that I can give that vulnerability away to someone who might feel the same,
yeah.
or who has been through similar experiences as me. Like I have a song that people who see me like at open mics here often, called Mama Needs Her Baby. And it's about my relationship with my narcissistic mother.
Okay,
And people often ask me after I sing that, they're like, how do you sing that without crying? And I was like, there were tears when I wrote it, and singing it helps me, process those feelings again. And
yeah,
now I'm at a point where like, I have to disconnect a little bit because, you're performing, you're putting on a bit of a face, but it's like, but I can give you these raw, real feelings of when I was really in the moment with it. And that's something I definitely could not have done looking at my old stuff.
sure.
I don't think I would share my old songs with people, maybe like my best friend, but
Right, right.
I'm a lot more comfortable sharing the newer hard things in life with people.
That makes
You
sense.
can't quite tell why, but
When you have a song like that, like the one you just mentioned, where obviously, I mean, I'm sure it was cathartic to write. You going through some heavy emotions when you wrote it, and I'm sure when you perform it, does that catharsis happen every time you play it, or was it just sort of like a one time thing? You let it all out, and now it's just sort of going through the motions. Not to imply that it's not you're not feeling it when you're playing it on stage, but does it like reopen the feelings every time you perform it? I guess.
it depends. I do kind of put up a guard when I perform that kind like that song and that kind of
Sure.
music, only for the sake of like, I want to be able to deliver a good performance. There's been moments where I find myself kind of like letting that guard down a moment, and then I'm like, okay, like I can't get choked up right now because I want people to hear me.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, like sometimes it kind of reopens it, or maybe afterwards I might have it that second kind of ha moment thinking about it. But I think that performing it over and over again is kind of like defending those feelings and the experiences and solidifying it in a way where it's like yeah, I did go through this and I've had all these feelings, whether they're still apparent or not.
Yeah.
But I will show you guys, and for that I feel stronger because I can wear these hard feelings on my sleeves, share them with you, maybe relate to some people in the crowd.
Yeah.
Sometimes people do come up after and they share their experiences with like similar experiences, and I'm like, that this brought us closer together, and for that we're both stronger.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and definitely it's been easier the more I have performed it.
I like that way of looking at it as far as the sharing the feelings. Because yeah, definitely. I mean, whatever the song's about, the chances of someone else having gone through something similar, they're pretty high. There's a lot of people out there. A lot of people have gone through sort of similar difficult things,
Yeah.
whatever it is, right? So yeah, and I think that's the best thing about music in general too, is that you can connect. I mean, even if it's not the connection that the original artist intended, if you can get something out of it, that affects you personally, and you can relate to your own feelings or your own experiences or trauma or whatever. I think that's when music really works. I mean, yeah, it can have a good beat and you can dance to it, but when there's that sort of deeper personal feeling you get out of it, whether it's folk music or hip hop or death metal or whatever it is, right? Like there's that thing that kind of binds artist and audience, I think.
Yeah, there's actually a anytime I write something and I'm kind of like, man, is this too vulnerable? Is this, can I share this? Is this too much or whatever? I go back to this quote by Pablo Picasso that I live by when it comes to my music. And it goes, the meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away.
Okay,
If I
I like that.
can, if I can be vulnerable and share the stuff I went through and, give that away to someone, either, resonate with it or heal from it, then, we're both better off because of it.
Sure. You mentioned a few minutes ago about the ukulele, and I've seen a lot of photos of you and videos of you with the ukulele. What was the reason behind that instrument? I know for a lot. I mean, like I have a kid who I have a teenager who learned how to play ukulele as a first instrument, and I know a lot of people sort of pick it up, and because you can get a few simple chords, and you can start writing songs sort of like right
Mm-hmm.
away, right? But what is the appeal of that instrument to you? Obviously, it's more than just a starter instrument for a lot of folks.
Well, for me, it was just the starter instruments. I started with one of those, like those like colored enamel
Yep,
ukuleles you can get
yep.
like along the way. I had one, yeah, it was like this little blue ukulele. I
There's a
think
green one in my
it
house. My kids have one. Yeah,
was,
I get it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Which there, it sucks for a beginner instrument because the nylon strings are shit,
They don't stay in
and
tune.
the top bridge of it, like at the top of the neck, is just a little too high, and so you're really struggling for any like pushing down strings on the first frets. Um, but my dad got me that first ukulele, I think Christmas of like when I was in grade nine, maybe
Okay,
grade. Actually, no, I think it was grade nine. I learned the four basic chords on it and like never progressed past that. And so I wrote like a bunch of songs, all very different melodies and whatnot, but all on the same chords. So I got
yeah,
very creative with my lack of skills, and I played that ukulele for a number of years. I played it at open mics and stuff until I wanted to upgrade to something that could plug in. Um, I got a tenor ukulele, which did have a plug-in. It
cool.
sounded the same though, but it had better strings on it, and it was just like a little bit bigger, had a strap, which made it a lot easier to perform with because
Sure, yeah, yeah,
having to sit and like prop a ukulele up was really bad on my back. And then sometime in those years too, like before I graduated, I also got a baritone ukulele,
oh,
which is
cool.
completely different because it's not, it doesn't have the same strings or like setup as a concert or tenor. It's basically a guitar minus the top two strings. So the shapes for the chords are completely different.
Yeah,
So I got that, and then I realized I would have to learn a whole different set of skills, so then I didn't pick it up for years. And then last year I started playing that one again, and I like, you know what? I think I'm gonna stick with this one. And then I got into classical guitar. You might
oh,
be able to
cool.
see my godin behind me.
In the background, yeah.
I started playing classical guitar March of this year.
So that's
I
very
started with
recent.
just, yeah, I just started with like a Yamaha student guitar. Was renting that from Long McQuaid, and then I rented this, better Godin guitar the last 2 months, and I finally just bought it like a few days ago. So
Oh,
now it's
cool.
officially.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it was definitely, yeah, it was
So
a slow progression.
how does that change? I mean, again, I know this is very new, the classical guitar thing, like you said, but how does that change the way you write songs? I mean, you have more strings, first of all, and I mean, it's a whole different sort of way of approaching just playing music. I mean, has it affected your songwriting yet, or do you anticipate that it will?
Oh, I definitely think it has, because the main reason I made the switch was because I was getting a bit like jealous of just that full sound of a guitar. Because a baritone ukulele is really full for a ukulele, but then when you're surrounded by guitarists, like, and
Yeah,
not that anyone was pressuring me to get a guitar or anything, but I looked around, I was like, man, it would be nice if I could like pick one up because like you can find a guitar at all sorts of places, and like,
yeah.
at some point it's almost a party trick, just like, oh, there's a guitar there, do 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 do, I can play
Someone
something.
will grab it and start playing songs. Yeah, yeah.
exactly. And I was drawn to classical because I was always doing my music on like nylon strings. So like I have the calluses and whatnot. A steel
Yeah.
string I can play, but it's slightly not as comfortable. And so yeah, I was able to have like a deeper, more full sound. And I think just having this bigger instrument, with six strings, and all these different tones really gave me it opened doors for me to like write more complicated things
Okay.
with more. And so now I do like finger picking style sometimes. Other times I'm just doing rhythm guitar. Um, but yeah, I think it's gonna kind of encourage me to want to learn to do more and more difficult things because it has the capacity to do more.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Have you? I know you've mentioned that you do a lot of open mics. Aside from that, have you sort of figured out where you fit within the local music scene? Because Winnipeg has such a wide and diverse set of artists. I mean, there's so I've been doing this for like 12 years now. Every weekend, I haven't even come close to scratching the surface. The amount of musicians here is crazy. But do you think that there's sort of like a niche where you fit in, or where your music fits in within the existing music scene, or are you still trying to find that?
I definitely think it does, but I've always wondered if every musician kind of has that. Yeah, I know my genre, but everyone's got these subgenres where they're kind of like questioning,
Yeah.
okay, I fit in the genre, but to what extent do I fit in?
Yes.
And to what extent am I this kind of separate entity? So I identify with folk. I call myself like dream folk because honestly I just use a lot of major seventh chords and they sound very dreamy. And I'm kind of known for that in a number of my songs. But lately, I've been questioning more like maybe a more like alternative folk, just because like my background in music, like I listen to all sorts of genres, like everything from like screamo, heavy metal to like jazz.
Cool.
And when I was a very young kid, it was mostly like new metal bands like Shinedown, Breaking Benjamin, 3 Days Grace, that kind of stuff.
Must have been the
And
era when all that stuff was big, right?
yeah, my dad listened to it in the van, so that's
Okay,
what
so you
I
got exposed. Yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so now it's like, but then I was drawn to folk music as I got older. I loved it's like, I found that it's very poetic and there was this beautiful simplicity to it. It's very easy listening music, and just like very easygoing, hunky-dory type of thing. Um, and I think my voice also kind of fit more to folk. I find that I have more of a soft, gentle voice.
Yeah,
Definitely not like a rock voice or anything, or you won't catch me doing any screamo. But I definitely have like the rock influences, but then like the heart of folk. So
sure. You're
yeah,
filtering
it's a
those
lot.
influences through what you do as a folk artist.
Exactly. So it's like I think some of those rock influences come through a little bit. But in general, like when I go to an open mic, I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm the one who plays all the mellow music, with the exception of like a few of my higher paced songs.
Yeah,
So there's definitely a community, but my community of folk people, everyone's so different. Like
that's true. Yeah, yeah.
I don't even know what to call everyone else's type of folk, but I'm like, that's folky. So this is like it's just a pool.
I think it's a harder question than I mean, I tend to ask everyone some version of that question, and it's always difficult to answer because unless you're basically like a straight ahead hip hop artist or a country singer or something, and even there's a bunch of offshoots as well. But there's so many, it's not as easy to define anymore. Everyone's got a subgenre of a subgenre, and it's part of this other thing, and
Yeah,
it's all over the place. So yeah, it's difficult to. But I mean, Winnipeg in general, as far as folk music, has a very strong community and always has, right? Like there's so many singer songwriters here. And folk groups and all the offshoots, even if you go into like bluegrass and country and then blues and
yeah,
all these other sort of subgenres. It's crazy how many people doing some form of folk music in Winnipeg.
yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. And I kind of for a long time I was kind of like, oh God, if I can't like pinpoint exactly what I am, people like what are they gonna expect from me? And then I
Right.
realized like, you know what? I can just say, here's the music I listen to. You guys listen to the same stuff? Cool. We have something to talk about. Here's my influences. You might pick up a little Bird Talker here or Bonnie Light Horseman there, or, 3 Days Grace over there. Who
Right.
knows?
Right.
Um, I'm realizing it's less and less important for me to prove exactly and define exactly what my music is and put it in a box. People will find it and they like it or they don't.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we're in an era now where it doesn't matter as much. It used to matter extremely what genre you were, but now it's really just like old, the nerds like me who are trying to categorize everything on their shelves. Like that's the only ones who really care. But right now, you can be anything you want. You can put it out there on the internet, and anyone from anywhere is going to find it. Right. So it's a very different ecosystem, I think, for artists in general than it was even 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
So, for people who are hearing about you for the first time on the show, what's the best way to find out what you're doing? I mean, the good thing about this being a podcast is someone could tune in the day it gets released, or they could tune in a year from now, and by then, maybe have more music out, you got more shows. Who knows? So, what's the best way to sort of follow what you're up to online?
Um, Instagram is definitely the one I'm most like avid on. Like I'll post about what I'm up to. I have a Joy of Music broadcast channel on my Instagram. People can DM me too. I'm, usually open to like quick chats and stuff. I have my website. I'll be updating it actually just tomorrow because I do have I have a feature set coming up at the Tap House December
Oh,
3rd.
cool.
I'm going to be applying for festivals with my band, so you can find all that stuff on my website as those things get accepted and whatnot. I have a TikTok. I would say that one's more for just like consumption of my music. Instagram is more promotion and like what's going on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay,
I have
that's
a Facebook page too, but yeah.
so you're easy to find, I guess, right? I mean, on whatever
Yeah.
platform people can look you up and find you. And then as far as actually hearing the music, what's the best way to do that? I mean, I know you have well, you've been writing music for a long time, so you have a bunch of stuff that's out there in the world. What's the best way to track down your music and give it a listen?
Um, well, funny thing is, I did have a lot of music out up until very recently. I had put out an album, two EPs. I had a like nine releases altogether that I kind of took down because most of the stuff I still love all of that music or most of it, but I produced it by myself when I was in high school.
Right,
And I realized, like, especially in this new year, I'm kind of gearing up to re-record some of that stuff because I want people to have a more honest version of like, this is what I actually sound like, and like the ideas that I am able to vocalize better now with like the help of producers and people who know what they're doing. Um, so I would say you can find me on Spotify, but if you really want to hear me, come see me live. Find me at
right.
Tap House and Coffee, Handsome Daughter.
And then eventually there will be more on Spotify once you get this. I like the idea of re-recording it
Yeah,
all, or re-recording the ones that you like the best from those old songs to reflect
yeah,
where you are now. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely a time and place for home recordings, and I love a lot of that stuff where it's just very DIY. But if you have the capacity to do it better, makes sense.
yeah, yeah.
Cool.